Hi, it's me again. We're not going to be super intensely emotional today. At least I don't think we are, but I'm really excited to talk to you about what I plan to talk to you about today. And it's nice to see you. I've been navigating a lot of change recently. I don't think that's going to be surprising to you, despite the fact that we haven't touched base in a number of months. And I'm really excited about where I think that change might be taking me. But before we can really dive into where I think that might be, I think it's important that I take a step back and I talk about something that I have been, navigating for probably my entire life. Definitely most acutely during my adult life, and especially over the last few months. And that is this internal pressure to find my North Star. I think a lot of us struggle with something like this, especially I think in the day and age that we live in, where the world feels really split. First of all, it's harder than ever, at least it seems that way, to live and thrive and be happy. Things are more expensive than ever before. But on the flip side of that, you see all of these people who are like more aggressively than ever saying things like, chase your dreams, don't let anything get in the way of the life that you want to live. Find your purpose, seek that, because you're never going to get this time back. And I personally find that binary to be pretty intense and sometimes overwhelming. No matter what side of that spectrum you find yourself on, even if you find yourself square in the middle. I think sometimes the fact that we become so binary about things can put a lot of pressure on us. And I am no stranger to that. I actually love that concept of finding that purpose, that singular thing. At least this is the way that the internet will almost describe it to us. It's like a certain way of living, or a certain passion, a certain hobby, a certain interest, a certain way of life. And I've always wanted that. I've always been envious, actually, of people who have this one singular passion. I think it is the crux of a lot of the way that I have tried to live my life. Again, going all the way back from childhood until now. Yeah, I've always had that tension, this sort of trap of wanting things in my life to be fixed, to be permanent, to be clear. But I'm starting to realize that maybe that's not the point. At least not for me, and I suspect not for a lot of people. Ever since I was a little kid, like before I could talk, I knew I wanted to be a vet. And as life sort of evolved and I got older and I experienced things kind of in my surroundings, in my environment, and in that upbringing that were chaotic and unpredictable and confusing, I found myself consciously, even back then, chaining myself to this concept that gave me a ton of relief, which was, I don't know what's going to happen out there in the world, in my environment, in my home, but I know for a fact one singular, unchanging thing, that I know what I'm going to do with my life because I know what I'm going to do with my career. And obviously, we've talked about that story that I was volunteering at a vet clinic and I passed out, and like a scene from a movie, was lying on the floor actually looking up at the ceiling. And when I woke up, I just realized I can't do this. And feeling that moment be stripped from me, ever since that feeling was stripped from me, I can't lie. I have looked for that in everything that I do, in the people that I surround myself with, in the things that I do, the hobbies that I'm interested in. There is always this sort of attached intention that's not pure, that is a little part of me gnawing inside that says, well, maybe this will be the thing to replace that. But I think I am starting to realize something really major and really important, which is that I don't think that's the way that I'm meant to live, even if it's what I want. So the question that I've been asking myself recently, the one that I'm sort of really navigating here, is what if my North Star isn't a singular fixed thing, but it's more like a constellation of things. It's more a feeling than an actual thing itself. It's more esoteric than that. I've just never stopped wanting my life to feel predictable. And I'm realizing now God's not going to give me that. The universe isn't going to give me that. And I think this energy that I have of waiting and waiting and waiting and trying something but feeling like, nope, I don't like that enough, is keeping me stuck in this cycle of almost mental masturbation where I feel like I need things to feel perfect before I'm willing to take a leap. And I know that I need to take the leap in order for the net to appear, and I'm probably not going to find that thing or that direction until I actually just take the leap and go for it. And whether or not that's the thing, I think being in that energy and being in that intention is going to naturally much better and more efficiently bring me to the place that I'm meant to. So I just kind of created a list a couple weeks ago that I've been referencing almost daily now to kind of keep me on track with this. It's a list of concepts, hobbies, activities, ideas, but the key is not the activities themselves. The key is this phrase non-destructive. Anytime that I venture into any number of the things on this list, I must pursue them non-destructively. I don't pursue them with an intention. I don't pursue them with a cherished outcome. I'm just doing it either for enthusiasm, for enjoyment, or because it's going to bring me to a place that I genuinely want to be. There's no forcing, no resistance, no suffering. And that's antithetical to the way that I used to think. And it's the way that I'm sort of biased to naturally think, that I'm really just trying to undo and unwind. And trying isn't even the right word there. I feel like a lot of what's going on within me recently is a natural evolution that is taking place on its own. It's unfolding on its own. And even if I wanted to get in the way of it, I can't. I don't know. I'm going through some sort of another evolution, a metamorphosis that I think has finally met me because I have finally surrendered. Enough to the point where I can start to really ask questions of myself in a more genuine, self-serving, and authentic way. A way that aligns me more to peace than through struggle. So without further ado, let me share the list with you. All right, well, welcome to Creativity Log. This is it. I created this list at this point 8 days ago. I'm recording this on the 28th. And right here at the top, I have that piece which explains that all of this needs to be pursued non-destructively. It's just something to consult when I'm called to lean in. And if I don't feel like looking at this list, then I don't. There's no pressure into it. And obviously, the list here that I'm scrolling through now probably has extremely little overlap to do with any of you. They were written in no particular order here. There are categories like are actual physical goods that I want to research a little bit more, areas of nourishment, gear that I'm tinkering with, ideas that I'm tinkering with, travel that I'd potentially want to do, art that I'd potentially want to do, the book that I still have yet to finish here, some ideas on that, and then some general areas on mind, and then some energy ideas that I want to experiment with in terms of like how I can orient myself to do more of this work more mindfully without resistance. The color coding here is based on where I'm at in the process. So red means it didn't happen. Yellow means that it's in progress. Green means that I did it. And then I have these comments on the side for when I sort of did those things. Anyway, so that's the list. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. There's a concept that I have been feeling very recently in my life coming out of that timeline of depression that really lasted about 1.5 years for me, when that brain fog was so heavy I could not see a single thing. I didn't know where I was going. I have fully come out of that, and now I'm in this really delicate, beautiful position where I feel like I'm sort of budding. At the same time that I feel like I'm budding, I feel like I'm getting ready for winter, and I'm kind of like pulling my energy back into myself a little bit. But this phrase that came to me is catching the lift. And it's essentially, I get this visual of like a paraglider. This is a good reference for me because I just recently went paragliding. But you run against the wind, and there's this point when the sail, the wing, starts to catch lift, because there's enough pressure in the air to pull that wing up and allow the person to take flight. And I feel like that is where I'm at right now. I just want to keep running toward these things that are nourishing me and lifting me up, but not putting pressure on myself to do it, and just being really delicate and working with that energy as opposed to making it work for me or working it too hard. It's a very delicate, very natural process. And I feel like this list really embodies that for me. It's, again, not at all about forcing action, but about giving myself options and about bringing all of those beautiful little ideas and curiosities that will naturally percolate through my brain into a piece of paper, a document that can ground me for when I'm feeling a little stuck or a little lost. And I just want to have a reference guide for some of the things that I know that I think about frequently, but for whatever reason might not be able to access in that moment unless I can visualize it. I kind of got the spirit of this list, the inspiration for it, by an individual by the name of James Hollis, who's a PhD. He's a psychoanalyst. He's a Jungian psychoanalyst. I recently read one of his many books. I was supremely inspired by a concept that he touches in that book. It's a question, actually, of enlargement versus diminishment. And the specific question is, will this enlarge me or will it diminish me? And it's supposed to serve as a framework for the decisions that we make in a day-to-day basis in our day-to-day lives. Does this expand me? Does it elevate me? Does it enlarge my lived experience, or does it diminish me? Does it make me feel contractionary? Does it reduce me? And I think this frame is such a phenomenal way to view the world, because if we focus on things that enlarge us emotionally, physically, athletically, spiritually, we can't go wrong. And a lot of times we default to diminishing activities because we're living someone else's life or someone's agenda other than our own. That concept is something that I am absolutely trying to embody more in my life, and focusing on activities, methods, concepts that will enlarge my lived experience as opposed to diminish it. And again, I'm really not trying to notice this. It feels like it's happening for me. I'm noticing myself losing connection to certain concepts or places or methods that are quite honestly just diminishing on their own as I get older and I get wiser and I do more of this internal work. I'm naturally being aligned toward things that enlarge me. And it's a process that, as long as I don't get in the way of it, I'm realizing slowly, like we are born knowing but forget as human beings going through a very human world, that nature knows what it is doing and it needs very little to no human intervention. What I am noticing is that it's less about what I do. It is so much more important how I do it. When I choose things from the perspective of, I want safety, I want control, I want predictability, I want to on paper look like somebody who represents a success story of a modern person living in a modern world. Those are not at all the internal locuses that drive my happiness. So the more that I can just focus on pursuing work and hobbies even that just bring me joy and that make my life feel good, things that are just pursued for themselves, purely for themselves, not for drive that comes from the ego because I want to be successful or I want to escape this sort of false life that I'm living in. All of those concepts, if I pursue anything with that feeling, I'm really running from something. I'm not doing it just for the sake of doing it. And I absolutely do not always get this right. But on average, I'm starting to notice my patterns. And I'm trying to do my best to honor that and live in that flow. I guess the framework that I am pursuing all of this with is aligning without forcing. I know just based on who I am and that framework and that little kid who's so anxious that she lost that one singular drive, that one singular fixation. I know how easy it is for me to think up a new world or a new list like this, and slowly it becomes something that I pursue with pressure, or I pursue with force, or I pursue out of anxiety. It's going to take time. for me to not default to that. I was thinking about caffeine tolerance almost as an analogy to this. It's like if you're trying to reset your caffeine tolerance, your tolerance has grown too high, you're not going to reset that tolerance level or that threshold in a day or 2 days or a week. It's going to take at least a month. And so I'm using that almost as an analogy to this kind of work, is that it's not like a daily discipline or something that I need to be doing. If I wake up one day and I'm just like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm just going to watch YouTube, or I'm just going to relax, or I'm going to just go for a walk. Like, whatever that is, I kind of want to dance through it. And so it's not a daily discipline. It's more of a constant reorientation. It brings me back to that constellation sort of visual that I was describing, which is like, you got to look up and say, is this generally bringing me to where I want to go? And I know that the best way to get to where I want to go is by being aware of how I'm doing it, about how I'm moving toward that thing. I don't think the universe is going to reward me for discipline or by pushing myself dogmatically. I think if it were going to do that, that would have happened by now. So I need to be really conscientious of the energy that I bring into my systems and make sure that my intentions are free and clear and good. So yeah, that's it. Again, my list going to be really not applicable to anybody other than me. Obviously, my list is going to change too. This is just things that I'm thinking about right now. But in the concept of trying to identify a North Star, I think there's going to be a constellation of them for me, at least personally. Is this a hell yeah, basically? Like, I think hell yeah is a North Star. And I have others that are a little bit more spiritual, like to work with my soul and the souls of others. That's another North Star. And there's this cluster of North Stars. They're all generally in the same sort of vicinity in my sort of spiritual landscape. But there's not just one. And I think I'm going to kind of jump from one to one, or dance rather, between all of them as my energetic system sees fit. To bring it back to the hell yeah, it's like ending more days with that feeling. Agnostic to what I've done. How have I done what I've done? Can I get to the end of my day? Can I get to the end of more of my days than not? Feeling like whatever I did, that I accomplished it the right way. It's funny, I was talking to my therapist about this concept last week, and I brought up the whole vet analogy and the challenge there. And I was like, I've always been envious of people who just have one thing. That's all they've wanted to do their whole lives, and they've got that one thing, and they wake up every day and they don't doubt where they're going because they know. And she kind of stopped me right in my tracks, and she was like, that sounds really boring to me. And I hadn't thought about that either. And I was like, honestly, you're kind of right. It's just hard for me to give myself the permission to live in that sort of way, but I don't even know if that's the kind of life that I want, or it's more like what assumptions I'm making in that kind of a life that I want. Again, the point is that I'm floating this possibility within myself, which I think is more likely than not a likelihood that I'm not going to have a North Star. And there's probably going to be very few moments over my time horizon, my life horizon, where I do have one North Star, and then I pick up and leave that North Star and I go to the next one. I think for me, there's always going to be that kind of a constellation, and now I'm just asking myself one other question, which is, how do I get there? So yeah, that's where I'm at in this ongoing journey. I'm experimenting, I'm trying new things, I am remembering myself again. And I am trying to enlarge my life non-destructively, without pressure, for the first time, really conscientiously and mindfully. And I'm excited about the prospects of where that might take me. I'm starting to admit to myself that my life in this way and this method is going to be messy, and it's going to be non-linear, and it is going to be contradictory sometimes, because there's a lot about me and inside me that is for sure paradoxical, but it's mine. And that's a beautiful thing. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you when I see you. Take care.